So today, I'm going to title this talk Mirror, Mirror. He knows we got a couple mirrors on stage. Mirror, mirror. What was that? Snow White, right? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest? Come on, don't act like you don't watch the Disney movie. And so we're going to talk about marriage as a mirror today. I know you may have heard marriage. We're going to talk about more than marriage, by the way. We're going to talk about all kinds of relationships, but you may have heard marriage defined as different things. Some people call it a ball and chain. Yeah, you were all careful to laugh at that one because that person next to you was just waiting. Don't you dare call our relationship that. I've heard marriage, as I say, one person said marriage is like playing tennis with the thermostat every day for 40 years. Marriage is being married to 5 different people and all of them are you. But I want to propose to you today. I originally got this, so I'm going to plug a book. You've plugged some incredible books the last couple weeks. I'm going to plug a book today about 7 years into our relationship, our marriage, which I've told you this before. That was a critical time in our marriage. It was some tense moments. Let's just say we needed some readjustments in our relationship at that point. And I remember coming across a book, and I'm gonna show it to you today. And it's a book I'm gonna recommend if you're in any type of relationship, specifically in marriage. And it was called Sacred Marriage. The subtitle of the book, this does not sound sexy at all. It was, Marriage was meant to make you holy, not happy. Oh, I thought you guys would have like a rousing applaud right now. Like, yes. That's what I went into marriage for. I wanted to make me holy. And in fact, we actually did this small group in Sacred Marriage. And after watching it, there were times I thought, man, the guy that was leading it, I thought his marriage is only holy, not happy. So at first it was tough to digest, but this particular book, and I told this to so many couples, it revolutionized my life. And it revolutionized my view on marriage. And what I came to realize that God uses relationships. I don't mean just like surface relationships. I mean deep-seated friendships, marriage probably being the paramount relationship, to act as a mirror for your life. I was reading, in fact, the book, at the beginning of the book, he tells a story, and I didn't know this until reading the book, but it wasn't until like the Renaissance era that doctors had ever actually opened up a human body or ever peeled back the skin of a skull, ever cut through bone and actually removed and examined and charted the organs that laid underneath. But it became a critical first step in finding out how the human body really works. So for thousands of years, physicians had speculated on how the human body worked and on what went on the inside, but there was this reluctance and even this abhorrence to really dive in, to actually dissect a cadaver. And even there was reasons. There were some of them for religious reasons at that time. They wouldn't open up a body. Some of them just the eeriness of, I can't even think about it. I'm not a doctor. I can't imagine even this day, surgery and how they do it and opening up a body. There were different reasons why people wouldn't do it. And actually there was a man by the name of Andreas Vesalius, and he was the first one to cut into the human body. It wasn't until the 16th century. And then he was able to chart the human anatomy like no one else had ever done before. In a similar way, today, I want us to be willing to make some cuts. I want us to peel back, to open up, to look on the inside of our own relationships. Ultimately, to peer inside of our own selves, to find out where the poisonous attitudes in our life are hidden. Where there is weakness, where there is even sin, and learn how ultimately to grow through the process. And I feel like that God has given us relationships. They're like a mirror. Mirrors do a couple things. Write this down. If you're taking notes, mirrors do a couple things. A mirror reveals, a mirror magnifies, and a mirror refines. This is the context of the way we're going to share today. So write this down. Number one, a mirror reveals the self that you didn't know was there. That's what a mirror does. Just think about it in a practical sense. A mirror magnifies the self that you thought you could hide. Oh, wait till we get to that part today. And then a mirror, I love this though, is the redemption side of relationships. A mirror refines the self that you didn't know that you could be. A couple, they're a relationship, marriage and relationship consultants, and their names are Gary and Betsy Rasushi. And they said, one of the best wedding gifts God gave you was a full-length mirror called your spouse. He said, had there been a card attached, it would have said, here's to helping you discover what you're really like. Anybody married can testify to that today. And which leads to this first point about marriage as a mirror, is that a marriage reveals the self that you didn't know was there. So if you're not married, I just want you to substitute a friendship, especially like a best friend, a deep-seated friendship, even like we'll talk about parenting for a second here this morning, having a child, parenting relationship. I mean, like deep bonded relationships will reveal the self that you didn't know was there. Jesus said it like this in Matthew chapter 7. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank that is in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. I think many of us treat relationships, you may want to write this down. Many of us treat relationships like a sawdust finding competition. We are looking into our spouse's eyes, not to gaze at their beauty, but to look for the specks. And all the while, there's a massive 2x4 that is protruding out the front of our face. This is what I mean when I say marriage, relationships, best friends, they are like a mirror, and they reveal a part of you that maybe you did not know was there. And if you are so consumed with highlighting your spouse, your friend, your parent, your child, and the areas that they're falling short, you miss this divine mystery of relationships and lessons that it has to teach us. So a mirror, it reveals. You think about it in a practical sense. Many of you glanced in the mirror this morning. Thank God. Some of you, maybe you should have looked in the mirror before you came to church this morning. I'm just kidding. Don't get mad. You'll get way more mad the rest of the sermon, so don't take this opportunity. I should lead in lightly. But think about it. You look in the mirror. When I look in the mirror, I notice things that I didn't know were there. I noticed, oh, my Lord, my zipper was down, right? Thank God I checked the mirror before I went on the stage to publicly speak today, right? You look in the mirror. What about this one? You look in the mirror and you discover you have a piece of pepper in your tooth. This is one of my pet peeves. Have you ever been talking to somebody and they're smiling and they are so engaged in that conversation, mouth wide open, and they got a piece of pepper, like right there. It always gets stuck right there. You ever notice that? And how do you tell somebody? Have you ever been in that situation? You want so desperately to tell them and you just can't. And you wish you'd be like, I wish you would have taken just a few extra seconds before we started this conversation and you'd looked in the mirror. Why? It reveals things that you didn't know that were there. And that's the point of looking into the mirror, is to reveal maybe something that is wrong. John Owen said, I love this quote. He said, the person who understands the evil in his own heart is the only person who is useful, fruitful, and solid in his beliefs and obedience. Others only dilute themselves. They upset families, churches, and all other relationships. In their self-pride and judgment of others, they show great inconsistency. Ooh, okay, it's starting to get a little deep. I'm gonna tell you, and this is 7 years into our marriage, being frustrated, and I had spent 7 years trying to fix her. I was living out my God-given assignment to fix my wife. And I'm telling you, every little piece of sawdust, I saw it, I pointed it out, I revealed it to her. This was my job as a husband. And the truth is, for 7 years, it was mounting tension. And I literally thought it was my job to come in and I was gonna be the great teacher. You remember those days, babe?
Like when you try to teach me to mop the floor 2 weeks into our marriage. Wow.
Oh, I wasn't going to go there today.
Yes, we're going there. And I'm like, bro, I've been mopping floors like before.
But the
you
problem
ever
was,
thought about it.
I'll go back to that moment though. The problem was she didn't mop, the lines weren't straight. Like outside when you mop, the lines weren't straight.
It dries, so.
Well, but it's just an area I needed to fix you.
But you didn't know how to operate a can opener at that point. I would just like to point out. So I was like, okay.
That is true.
And I was like, thank you for the lesson. It didn't go well. We'll just say that.
I think that is the point I was so focused on you. I was going to teach her everything I knew, and I knew everything. In my first few years of marriage, I was the great master. And when I read this book, this is what I mean by it literally revolutionized my whole idea of marriage. And I remember a few years later, I had, it was my best friend, still is to this day, thank God, that we went through a season in our relationship. And luckily I had read this book or I don't think we would have salvaged our relationship. And there were some very tense moments in our relationship. And what I realized in reading this book was that marriage was a mirror. And as much as I wanted marriage to be me pulling all the little tiny specks out of her eye, it was this incredible opportunity for God to reveal the massive beam that was protruding out of the front of my forehead. And if you're honest this morning, if you're married or you're in a very deep-seated relationship, you know that the more you grow in that relationship, the closer you become, that the more is exposed about you. And that can be daunting at first. To be honest with you, what I realized a few years in was I did not want to look in the mirror. It was so much easier to look at Sonya. When I had to look at the mirror, I had to face and I had to confront all the weaknesses and the flaws, the failures, and the sin in my own life. And God was using our relationship, the relationship of marriage, he was using it ultimately to reveal to me things that I did not know were there. I'll be honest with you. One of the things right after reading this, what I realized about myself, what the mirror revealed, I'll just be transparent for a moment. What the mirror revealed about me was I was a very selfish person. This is one of the things I noticed. And because I was deflecting all the time and pointing everything about her, I didn't allow God to reveal this to me. I always thought, man, I'm this giving. I naturally feel like I'm a generous person. But what I realized was, and I'm very ambitious. I have a lot of ambition. Like I got a million things I'm trying to do and accomplish and get ahead. What the Lord started to show me was a lot of it was selfish ambition. I was really ambitious about me. And you get into a relationship, when you're single, you're taken care of. The reason I didn't know how to open, this is the God's honest truth. The reason I didn't know how to open a can opener or use a can opener when I got married is because my mom did everything for me. My mom opened cans for me. She made me dinner. She did my laundry. She made my bed. Like I was a spoiled little brat. She did everything for me. So of course, when I got married, I'm like, oh, perfect. Go from mom to now I got my new nanny that I'm gonna bring in, I'm gonna enter a relationship with.
Yeah, we don't have time to talk about gender roles, but.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. And you get into a relationship and now you're not just concerned about you. You go into a relationship, Genesis says you leave and cleave. You leave your mother and father's home. And now it's not just me that I'm to be focused on. Now I've got a spouse, a mouse. Not a mouse. She's not a mouse.
I mean, at least it's small. You could have said a house,
Yeah. Or like it was hippopotamus day the other day. I could have said something like that.
National Hippo Day.
Yeah. Yeah, so it could have been, that went weird. Anyways. Yeah, what I realized a couple things, and I think the big thing was that I was selfish. And you think about the society we live in today, there are legions of books, right, that even right now are published every year that teach us how to care for ourselves. Caveat here, I'm all about self-care, okay? I love taking a Sabbath, focusing on yourself. I know you can only fill from a full cup, and so take this in context. But if you think about it, our society is increasingly fractured, and there's this obsession with looking out for ourselves, standing up for ourselves, and bettering ourselves. And our society, you may want to write this one down, our society has become experts in self-care, and we've seemingly lost the art of caring for others. Maybe the friction in your relationship What you're seeing is not your best friend. Maybe it's not your spouse. Maybe it's not your kids. Maybe God's using that relationship to show you that all you're focused on is you. And maybe you need to take a class in what it looks like to care for other people. I know I'm sounding passionate right now because this is the lesson I had to learn. This is what God had to show me, that at this point I was married, I had 2 kids. I say this embarrassingly. The early part of our children's life, I was just telling this to a couple in Rancho, they just had a baby, and they were telling me that their first baby, man, they didn't sleep through the night, but their second baby is so much better. And I said, man, honestly, in those early years, I was asleep. I didn't know if that baby was crying, they were awake or they asleep, because I was like, that's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility. That's your job. Some of you are quiet because that's where you're at right now. And what I came to realize was I was selfish. And the other thing I realized was I was actually very immature. I told you, we're going deep today. Because some of you are looking in the mirror of a relationship right now, and if you're honest, what it's revealing is that you have some immaturity about you. And you can't handle the conflict. You can't handle the tension. You're not ready to have the hard conversations. You're not ready to own up where you're falling short. You're not ready to deal with the man in the mirror. And so you know what we do? Is instead of looking in the mirror, we look to the other person and continue to point out the flaws, the weaknesses, the failures in that person. And here's the deal. You are missing out on this incredible opportunity that God uses relationship to reveal the flaws in your life. And I'm telling you, you can choose to exist alone. In fact, I think sometimes we've even like spiritualized singleness, which if you're single, that's amazing. Take advantage of this incredible time. Write this down. This is good. If you want to be free to serve Jesus, stay single. If you want to be free to serve Jesus, because let me tell you something. You get into a relationship, you start dating, you get engaged, you get married. It takes a lot of time away from you devoting your life to Jesus. You start having kids, you lose even more time. So if you want to be free, I used to think, man, like nuns and the monks and priests, like you think about it, we have elevated into this high degree of even spirituality. I'm going to challenge some of your theology right now. We've elevated, like these are some of the most spiritual people because they've given themselves solely to serving Jesus. And if you want to serve Jesus, stay single. But if you want to become like Jesus, get married. Because instead of waking up at 3 a.m. to go to the monastery to pray, it's who's waking up at 3 a.m. to feed the babies. Jesus was concerned about others. I'm not even saying there's one's better than the other. I'm saying what I'm really trying to show you is that marriage is this opportunity for you to become more like Jesus. And I know you may have never heard that before, and you probably never viewed your relationship before. And this revolutionized my whole view on relationships. This is what I want to challenge you with today, is that you can't just point outward, you have to point inward. So even right now, I want you to take an inventory of your relationships. Think about, just in recent days, some of the moments of tension in your relationships that you've experienced with your best friend. Just think about it and analyze it for a second. I'm sure you've picked apart your best friend, and you can tell me 100 which ways that they were wrong and they offended you, and this is where they're short. Or maybe it's a spouse, a boyfriend or girlfriend, a fiance, and you have picked out all the areas why the reason this isn't working, the reason we're having this conflict, the reason we're having this trouble, and you have pinpointed everything about them. Just take a second, and I want you to take an honest assessment of yourself. What is God revealing to you about you in that relationship right now? This is what I mean by a relationship is a mirror that reveals parts about you that you didn't know were there. So maybe there's some selfishness that's causing the tension in you. Maybe there's some pride in the relationship, and it stems from you. Maybe there's some unforgiveness in that relationship, and you're starting, even right now, God's using that I'm challenging you to change the way that you view, the lens through which you view your relationship. It's a mirror that reveals things that you didn't know were there. Number 2, write this down. Man, this is scary. A mirror magnifies the self you thought you could hide. Proverbs says this, under 3 things the earth trembles. Under 4 it cannot bear up. A servant who becomes a king, a godless fool who gets plenty to eat, and you've probably never heard this one. I'm gonna ask you to dive into this one because I wanna. An unloved woman who gets married. Now, you can put in there, just so you know, you can put man or woman, but I don't wanna come across wrong, baby. So I want you to address this particular part of
Well, we could think about in the context of probably when this was written, that was like. I don't think love was on the high list of priorities. So probably a lot of women were getting married and were unloved. That was the case, or found themselves unloved throughout the process. But I think what we can take from this, less diving into that, and more on just this idea. I think in our culture today, we do have this idea, and this was probably true for them. Like marriage, way back when, was something that you did, but it was for stability. You can't have children and not be provided for, and women didn't have the opportunities way back then. But it was a means to an end in a lot of ways. And so if we think about what that looks like today, while there are more opportunities for women, there's still, not just for women, but just in general within our culture, there is this idea that relationships are going to fix things. And I'm not just saying marriage. Like, I don't feel good about myself, so I know I'm going to get in a relationship. Somebody's going to build me up, make me feel good. Yep. That's going to solve the problem. I maybe have hurts from my past. I wasn't accepted. Maybe the expectations were too high. I was never enough. I didn't feel fully accepted, known, loved. I didn't belong. I have never found a place to belong. I know I'll get in a relationship. I'll get married. Now, we think too, you're in a relationship, things aren't working out. I know. Let's have a kid. Oh, yeah. That'll make everything better. And the truth is, some of you guys are tracking with me, that while it sounds like a cure-all or it sounds like a fix-all, that is not. And I know we've talked about this before, but the expectation that somebody's going to complete you, that's not a real thing. That's not reality. And it's not to say that relationships cannot provide a lot of things that can provide healing. They can, but expecting them to be a cure-all, that's a problem, because your expectations are not going to be met. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to be disappointed. And at the end of the day, what's probably going to happen is your disappointment's going to lay with the other person. Yeah. And the blame's going to be laying on the other person because you weren't enough. You didn't support me enough. But the truth is that it's not a cure.
That's good.
Kind of transitioning a little bit, though, thinking about magnification. Relationship. Anybody ever find yourself at a hotel and they have this lovely thing that they do for us? They provide these mirrors. Oh, first of all, okay, well, I don't even want to talk about the lighting because what? I don't even know. But the lighting is terrible for start, so we'll take that. And then they provide these lovely mirrors that if you just flip it, on one side is like a normal mirror. You're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about how I look right now. Flip it over, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa. I have blackheads that I didn't know were there. Right. Like, what is going on? My wrinkles are getting bigger, and I don't even know what to say about the spot over here. What is happening? Maybe I should call the dermatologist. I think I have cancer.
I still think you're beautiful, babe, with all of it.
Thank you, but you're killing my... But it's true. There are this magnification. So if we think about, there's some things in our lives that the lighting's just right. We can look in the mirror. We can feel good, but you find yourself in different lighting. You find yourself with a magnification, and then all of a sudden there's things revealed that you didn't realize was there. So I'm thinking in relationships, initial relationships, right? You're starting out, you start to see things about yourself. But as you continue in deeper and deeper relationships, a magnification happens. Yes. There are things that are revealed that you maybe didn't know was there. And without powerful instrument, you wouldn't know otherwise. And that is something that relationships can happen. I think about scars. They're not always super, super visible, right? But if you have a little magnification, you have something, we try to keep them hidden, but all of a sudden those things start to be revealed. Think about wounds. There's no better way to find out that there's a wound than find yourself interacting. Somebody touches the wrong thing,
that's good.
And all of a sudden this, and I know we've been treading in these waters, but marriage and relationships, they are a way to find the wounds and to magnify them. And the difficulty with it is this. The magnification makes it so that, I don't know about all of you, but I don't feel good. Like if I'm walking and I see the magnification, I'm like, oh, whoa, that needs to be addressed. we can't just look at it. All of a sudden, it requires something of us. If we see it, then it requires something. And that's why a lot of us, like, it's difficult in our relationships. Like, we don't want to acknowledge those things. We don't want to see them. But relationships are a wonderful opportunity. And that's something that we can look at it that way, right? Instead of seeing it as something that is that we want to run away from, or something that is difficult, which we may find ourselves doing, as an opportunity to know something about ourselves and to change things. Think about relationships. So if we're thinking on the lines of like, yeah, it's going to cure, I can think as a mother. So chances are, if you didn't like kids, and either they whine a lot, they're a lot. Having your own is not necessarily going to just change everything about you. I know it's different. It's different when you have your own, but you're not all of a sudden going to become like mother hen and like, I'm inviting all the children of the world and this is great and everything about you changes. The reality is that you still are the same person. If you were selfish before, it's just going to become more magnified. If you maybe like to, shirk things, that's going to become a bigger issue. If you were harsh, or maybe like quick to, flip out and angry, that's just going to have more fuel to the fire. If you're passive and maybe you find yourself running, well, you're going to be like the armadillo in hermit mode, like this all of the time, because relationships have this magnification. And that doesn't mean that there's not hope. I think of the example of Abraham. And this one's really funny to me. That's just why I had to talk about it. But we all know, you may not know, but if you study Abraham, the things that we usually typically hone in on are the fact that he's the father of our faith. I mean, who doesn't want to be like Abraham? Here's a guy, God comes to him, he says, I'm going to send you to the promised land and all your seed will inherit it. And, through him, like, he is the father of faith. And isn't the Bible and isn't God just so gracious? He literally, the way he categorized, we see the flawed individuals within the Bible. We hear their stories. We see people like Abraham. We understand his flaws a little bit, but then how God says, or how it categorizes him as father of faith. And that's the good news, that God, no matter where we might be, like we're flawed, but also people that we maybe look to and aspire to be, they're flawed too. And it doesn't mean that there's the end. So think about Abraham. He's married, and there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of drama in his family. That's for sure. But he's married to Sarah, and Sarah must have been really, really good looking, because there's something that happens, not once, but it happens twice. So he's a vagabond per se. So he's journeying through these different lands, and he needs sustenance. He's going to find himself in lands that don't belong to him. He's going to find himself needing to make relationships with people. Be like, is it okay for me? I need my people need food and water, and my animals and my livestock need things. So he's finding himself doing lots of negotiations with people. And I'm going to focus in on one. So if you're really, really interested, like Genesis 12 or Genesis 20 talks a little bit about Abraham. But one of them, we find him in the land of Egypt. We find him encountering Pharaoh himself. And Pharaoh was a big deal. It was a very, very, very powerful kingdom. Pharaoh was very, very powerful. And he finds himself in this vulnerable situation, needing some things from Pharaoh. And he was a little afraid. So we find the father of faith, the guy who we're all here because of pretty much Abraham, Adam and Eve. We're not going to go into that. But the father of faith, we find him in this very faithless situation. He tells Pharaoh that his wife is his sister, because he's afraid that he's going to kill him and take his wife for himself. And this isn't the only time. This happens twice. So one, I don't even know what to say about Sarah. She must have been like pretty awesome. You have all these powerful men just trying to take her, and he has this fear. Also, that's kind of cute, He thought like, oh, my wife is so whatever. They're going to kill me for sure. That's cute. Anyway, but that's another story. But he finds himself in these situations again and again, and he's not quite able to have faith. Like, he's going to give up everything. He's going to follow God. He's going to leave his country of origin, and he's just going to sojourn. Like, God, wherever you tell me to go, I'm going. But he can't trust that God can keep him safe when somebody wants his wife. And there's something about that. What I love about it, though, is that we see this man, but we see that God works it out anyway. And he goes and he saves Sarah. And if you guys are really interested, it's fun. God really goes out, and there's these curses in the court and all of that. And Pharaoh ends up finding out. He's like, why didn't you tell me? I would not have done this thing, right? But we find this guy. He has this he has these flaws. And we find him turning, and isn't that what we do? We tend to kind of revert to more baser things. We revert to more immature places.
Yeah.
Here's Abraham, so mature in so many areas, so full of faith. And then when it comes down, when he end up in the pressure cooker, he finds himself just caving and behaving in a really, really immature and in a way that causes, difficulties for his wife. I kind of see it like this way, like, take her, don't take me. I'm sending her out, right? But that's literally what you do. And I think about that. Like, I loved how you talked about selfishness, but when I think about it, it's our nature to be selfish, and not all of that is a bad thing. Babies, they're born, and naturally they know, I'm going to cry, and I'm going to keep you from sleeping, and I'm not really concerned about whether mom or dad has sleep. Like, they're not concerned about that. They just know that they have needs. And as people grow, they start to begin to get a concept of, how I interrelate with people. But naturally, this is how we are. We are wired to survive. We are wired to adapt. And there's beauty in that. I think even like difficult things, like sometimes the people learn things and they're maybe they had trauma experiences and they adapt to their situation in a way, like think about if I cried, then I was going to get hit. Well, you will learn pretty quick that you didn't want to cry, right? And that was adaptive, and people survive, and there's beauty in that. But then the difficulty is when you find yourself in relationships, and if you never were in a relationship and you were left to your own devices, maybe that would never need to be corrected. Maybe that would be just fine for your entire life. Where we start to see things get difficult and heat up for people is when they find themselves in relationships where all of a sudden they're not able to have close relationships because of what had happened in their past. And because what was adaptive is no longer adaptive, and those things need to be corrected. I think the good news about it, though, is just that it is an opportunity to reveal things, and it's an opportunity for redemption. I can think about myself, like you were talking about children, and marriage. I was really, really young when I got married, like super young. And I didn't even know who I was, let alone like, how do I operate? As you think about this crisis of self, like this identity, I don't even know who I am. Now it's not just me, but it's a we. And so figuring that out, like that worked out okay. Like I started to figure out like, okay, I kind of got this thing, like it's you and I, and we're figuring this out. But then add child. And bless Megan, she's here today. But she was my test pilot and test dummy. And I would say like I was immature and I didn't have it all together. But I started to have another crisis. Okay, now it's not just we. Now I've got this other thing that I'm managing. And it does. If there was going to be revelation before, how much more so when you have other dependents, other needs. Even this might be later in your stage of life. Like I know they talk about like the sandwich generation, but maybe you find yourself caring for older parents. You find yourself still caring for your children, things like that. But it has a way of just revealing things about you, and you find yourself in that pressure cooker. I think I love this verse. It says, Proverbs 27:17 says this: as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And this is just the beauty of it, is that it is an opportunity for change to happen, for redemption to happen, for your story to change, for you to have a different ending, much like Abraham, father of faith. But we didn't remember so much all the little blips along the way. I had a situation recently, actually it was just this week. So Megan, she's here. Sorry, Megan, I'm telling lots of Megan stories. And she's here with us, and I'm excited about that. But I love that she's taking a little turn, and she's in her university, and she's decided to pursue psychology, which is really fun because now I have someone to talk psychological things with, and she's like, ooh, did you know about this? I was all like, yeah, that's really cool and whatever. And we're talking about neurons and stuff.
That's amazing. 2 psychologists at home.
Right?
Oh,
now we get to analyze. Talk about magnification.
God knew it was going to take 2 to figure me out. You couldn't do it. God's
I couldn't,
like,
but I needed to help. I needed a helper. So we're doing this thing, but what I love about it is I'm having this conversation with Megan. She's finding out about these different types of parenting styles. And she's going through and she starts to, I literally watching her in time, and she says, oh, here's the parenting styles, and we're reading it together. She's like, I learned about this in class. She's like, oh, wait, and she started to point to who I used to be. And I'll be honest, who I used to be was someone that couldn't handle her emoting. I had messages in my life that it wasn't safe to emote, or it wasn't acceptable to have emotions, or, you had to just stuff that away, and that's not okay. And I would find myself, even with her, like when she would have like big emotional outbursts, like I couldn't be emotionally available because of my messages, because of what had happened to me. And I was more dismissive. I was more cold. I was more unavailable because of my maturity and because of my wounds and because of things that I hadn't worked on. And I started to reflect on that. But the beauty of it is she started to pass along there, like, oh, I remember remnants of this, but her fingers didn't stop there. And she went down the line and she chose something different. And that was, I'm like, I'm an emotion coach? Like, what? Like, I've arrived, I've achieved, because that's who I used to be. And that's
good.
my way,
That's
like,
so good.
my wounds kept me from being there for her in the way that she needed, for my family in the way that she needed, but I didn't stay there. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that your story may be your Abraham, and you're like, take my wife,
Yeah.
sell it all, save my skin, right? The more immature, but it doesn't have to stay there. Maybe you're in a situation where you're at odds with people, or the relationship it seems hopeless, or even with your children, or you find yourself like, I keep yelling, or I keep doing, I'm getting real. This is where we live. I keep finding myself pulling away, or I'm cold, or I'm not available, whatever it is, I'm not able to meet people there. The beauty is that doesn't have to be where your story ends, that there is redemption.
That's so good, babe. I wasn't expecting you even to tell that story. You shared that earlier. So thank you for being so transparent and letting people see real life redemption, even just this week, seeing how God, and I think this is the beauty. Listen, that's what I want to communicate today, is that staring in that mirror is so challenging. Honestly, when I had to look face to face, and I mean, it's not like it was the only time. I'd done this for the last 23 years in our relationship. Looking at that person in the mirror at first, it is daunting, seeing that person. And honestly, many of us, you don't want to look at that person. And you don't want to confront that. You don't want to deal with that. The beauty is God doesn't use that to like guilt you about who you are. No, the truth is God, in fact, this leads to our final point, is that a mirror refines the self you didn't know you could be. To think that you went from on the chart, the dismissive parent about emotions, now you're considered the emotional coach. This is the power of relationships, guys. This is what relationships have the ability to do, to refine the person that you did not know you could be. I'm thankful that 23 years later, I know we had this conversation with Megan on the car ride over here today, and we were talking about how we are as parents today, and she was bragging about us. And like, no, Dad, she talked about, because I was the same way with Megan. I was very dismissive. I would cut her off and give her a lot of a voice, and she was saying, Dad, that's not who you are anymore. And this is what relationships have the ability to do. And this is why you can't bail out on relationships. Some of you, you've been dating over and over again because you get to a place in the relationship where the mirror starts to expose things out about you and you bail out because you don't want to face that person. Or you blame it. Blame is be lame. You blame everybody else instead of, you don't realize God's given you an opportunity. This relationship is an incubator to reveal the parts of your life that he wants to sanctify. God is using relationships to create a better version of you. I don't know about you, but I want to get better. I want to become more like Christ. I want a better version of me, and what better opportunity than deep-seated relationships to create that version? And that's what he does. He refines it. When I think of the word refine, you said earlier, you used the term pressure cooker. I don't know if you caught that. And I was thinking about the pressure cooker seasons of relationships, which we don't like them. They're not enjoyable. Can I tell you, these are the refining parts and processes of your relationships. We had a chance a few years ago. I don't know if you remember, we went to Italy, and I think they said 90% of all glass that you see like on shelves in stores was made in Venice, Italy. And we got to go to one of the factories there, the glass factories there. And we got to watch, they're called glass blowers, I think they're. And we got to see, particularly, it was a master glass blower who'd given his life basically to glass blowing. And what they do with glass is they take it, I don't know if you've ever seen this, go watch it on YouTube. I got to watch it live in person. And they take it and they put it into, I can't remember how hot that oven is. It's extremely hot. And what it does is it literally melts that glass. And that glass, it's incredible. You should see it. That glass is completely flexible. There's like this elasticity to the glass where literally in a few seconds they can form all the little figurines that you see that they sell in stores. They form that in seconds because it's so flexible. It's got this elasticity to it. And I was thinking that's what relationships do. That's what a mirror does. It refines. And some of you are in the pressure cookers stage of your relationship right now. And I'll tell you what you can do. You can let that fire burn the house down, burn the relationship down, or you can allow it to cause this elastic. I believe God, even right now, is speaking to some of us. And he's saying in this place, this phase, this season of your life, this stage of your life, the stage of this relationship that you're in, I want you to see the beauty. You're in a place now where you're formidable. You've got this elasticity. I'll tell you what, relationships will stretch you. Oh, Lord, they will stretch you. And so you're faced with this decision. Some of you are, because I feel it right now, some of you right now, you're faced with this. But it can be the most beautiful moments of your relationship. And it has been for us, thank God. You know what they say? Fine wine takes time. And there's a lot of pressing, right? There's a whole process that it goes through. And similar to fire, there's a refining process. This is what the author meant when he said it's a sacred marriage. That God is using your marriage, your best friendship, your parenting, whatever friendships you have, he's using it to refine you. Here's what James says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror, and after looking at himself, he goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they've heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. What's the point in looking in a mirror unless you're actually going to do something with what you see? And that's where I was 7 years into our marriage. I was faced with, I had a decision to make. Because that mirror had magnified so many of my flaws, and they had become, this is what happens. You get deeper into relationships, like you said, and it's like the hotel mirror. It's like, oh my God. And no one wants to see that. You look at that like, oh man, why did I look at that? I thought I was doing good. And now, look at the blackheads, look at the wrinkle, and the deeper you get into relationships, I think that's why for us at that 7-year mark, like we were in deep. And here's the deal, you're faced with a decision. You can just take a hammer and you can shatter the mirror. You can shatter the relationship. You can shatter the marriage. You can shatter the friendship. I'm telling you, I've dealt with this a few key times in my life. One was our marriage and one was in friendship with my best friend. And literally I could feel me pulling out the hammer, and I was ready to, and had I done that, I would have missed out on what we have today. 23 years later, I'm saying to somebody, don't quit. Don't back out. And I know it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to look into that mirror and say, God, I need you to help me to change. And that's what I did. I began to repent. Let me tell you what, you talk about the refining process. What God ultimately calls us to in relationship is love. So the greatest commandments were that we're to love God with all our heart. Some of us find that easy, but then we're to love others. We're to love our neighbors, ourselves. Loving God's easy. Loving others is not so easy. God doesn't have bad breath. God doesn't smell. God doesn't make rude remarks, right? This is making sense now? But when you get into a relationship with others, and the truth is, our relationship is like a practice court. For not only the love that we're called to have towards each other, we're called to love other people. We're called to love, Jesus said, let me take it a step further, you're called to love those that hate you. Love those that persecute you. Listen to me, Verve community. We have been given a mandate to love this world. In fact, we've been given a mandate to reconcile the world to Jesus. Our greatest example was Jesus. Jesus literally humbled himself and became obedient to death, the death of the cross. Why? To reconcile the world back to the Father. So watch this. Right now, some of you, there needs to be reconciliation that takes place in your relationship. Can I tell you, it's an opportunity? You know what God's gonna teach you? In that act of reconciliation with one another, he's gonna teach you how to ultimately help reconcile people back to God. I'm telling you, your marriage is sacred. Sacred. Babe, you wanna finish off with me with that?
Sure. Yeah, I could talk about. So you're like, well, what does that look like really in the relationship? And maybe some of you are at this crossroads. I think about one thing in particular, but humility.
Mm.
In this act of reconciliation, and I can look back at points in my life. You see, when we are hurt, when we are harmed, we feel anger, and anger is appropriate. That's the right way to feel if somebody harms you, or it threatens to harm someone else, or infringes on your rights, or keeps you from getting something that's important. That's an adaptive emotion. That's an appropriate emotion. The problem is where when we choose to hang on to it, what we want to do with it, when we hang on to revenge, or we hang on to that anger. I can think in our relationship, there was definitely a point when I found myself needing, for whatever reason, it was really difficult for Donnie to ever say, I'm sorry. It was hard for him to come to me. And I found myself again and again, like, oh, here I go again. I'm going to go in, I'm going to say I'm sorry, because he won't, and we can't, like, how long is this going to go, right? So again, I'm going to be the one. And that's annoying. I had, in this particular instance that I'm thinking about, I had a right to be irritated. I had a right to, I could have made the choice to, like, nope, I'm not going to do it. You figure it out, bro. Like, you're going to figure out how to, how you're going to humble yourself, and you're going to come over here because I have humbled myself enough. And not to say that I didn't have every right to have that. Sure. There was definitely situations, and I'm thinking one in particular, like, I had every right to be angry. I had every right to stay over here and to not bridge the chasm, but I knew he couldn't come to me. And so what I had to do was find myself in a situation, and a lot of times it looked like this, like praying to God, like, God, he's supposed to be your child, and he's not acting like it. He can't even say he's sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm totally just having this prayer time, and I'm telling God all about, like, how terrible he is, and fix him. And what he ended up doing was fixing me, and I think I have shared this before, but changing my heart. And I found my stances. I came to a point, and I had a crossroads. I had a decision. I could choose the road of humility. I could choose the road that allowed me to reach him and to go to where he couldn't come, or he wasn't able to for whatever reason. I could choose that road, or I could hang on to my pride. Because at the end of the day, when we think about anger, we think about vengeance, or we think about it, doesn't mean that we don't have a right to have that. But letting go of it is an act of humility. And really all we have to let go of is pride. And that's hard. Because as humans, there's a reason why we have that. And I'm not to say, like, this is true in all situations where you just let people walk all over. But in this case, I knew I had to let go of it. And that wasn't an easy thing to do. I remember wrestling again and again and again. And I remember asking God, like, hey, God, I need your help. In my own power, I can't do this. I need you to give me the humility. I need you to give me the strength to, when he's throwing bars at me, I just let it go. Not literally, like, but, like verbal sparring, to just continue to choose the path of humility, to choose the low road, to choose to apologize, even if I wasn't the one, if I was the one who deserved an apology. But finding myself, find the strength, the humility to say, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm going to fix it. No, I'm going to reach out to you. No, I'm going to be humble. And at the end of the day, if you hang on to your pride, yeah, it's a choice. But pride won't keep you warm at night. Yeah. Pride won't give you relationships. Pride won't give you something that is lasting. And sometimes that is the only barrier that's standing in our way of forgiveness, of reconciliation, of finding where the other person's at and reaching out to them. So whatever your context is today, I just want to let you know that. And that's what Jesus did. Yeah. We found ourselves, like you talked about this, but we literally could not come to God. So God came to us. He sent Jesus to reconcile, to do the work he did not deserve. We were the ones who were at fault. Yeah. We were the ones who were far from God. Humanity had sinned, we were flawed. And God had every reason to be like, oh yeah, you know what, you're too far gone. I don't have to do that. But instead he sent Jesus. And Jesus paid the price, the ultimate price. So he became the sacrifice so that he could bridge the chasm and reach us where we were in our immaturity, in our brokenness, in our flaws. We have the opportunity to do that in our relationships, to, like Jesus, take the road of humility and to bridge the chasm. And I know that's not an easy task, but it is one that we are called to. And it's so rewarding.
I think that's the pinnacle of the whole sermon right there, babe, is relationships have the opportunity to make you more like Jesus. Wow, that was so good. That was really good. We'll just stop there. Why don't we all just be honest right now? Right now, you're upset with the relationship. You're upset with the other person, the best friend. You're upset with the way your kids are treating you, your parents are treating you, your spouse is treating you. Close your eyes for just a moment. And I want to challenge you right now to look in the mirror. Forget about the person sitting next to you. I know you want to blame them for everything. Or the person on your job, whatever it is. Would you look in the mirror right now? We have an opportunity in this moment right now for God to refine us. What is God showing you? For many of us, I guarantee you it's that pride, babe, right now. That many of us, as we look in the mirror, if we're honest, we take an honest assessment, look a little further in that mirror and you see there's some pride issues in your life. Some of you have unforgiveness, you got hurts, you got pain. The issue is not with the other person. It really boils down to right now, God is bringing, and even right now in this moment, God is bringing some things to the surface, not to hold over your head. It's opportunity. I believe right now, with the Holy Spirit's help, we have an opportunity. I would love today for some of us to leave a little bit lighter. For some of us to leave a little more refined today. Like, I wonder what are some things that God is gonna reveal that we can leave behind today. We can walk out of this room and we're not harboring those feelings. We're not holding on to that pride. What if right now God would do a supernatural work in your life? I'm telling you to do it. If you'll be honest right now and you'll look at yourself. Here's what we're gonna do. I know right now what you see may be ugly. It may be hard to look at. It may be depressing to see. You may see a massive obstacle in the way of you going forward. But Sonya said it so best. I'm telling you right now, you could pray the same prayer that Sonya and I have prayed many times. And it was, God, help me. Help me to get rid of my pride. Help me to humble myself, to take the low road. I know what we're saying today, it can't be done in and of yourself. I'm here to tell you the Holy Spirit's in this room right now, and he wants to give you the ability, the courage, the strength, and the power to make a decision today to move forward. So right now, just keep your eyes closed. Would you just be honest with God right now? Why don't we take a moment, all of us? What if we just took a moment and we repented before God today? We ask God to forgive us the poisonous attitudes, for the hidden weaknesses, things that have become sin in our life, thoughts that we've harbored towards one another. Maybe you need to grab that person next to you right now and grab their hand. You need to forgive them. You need to make up your mind, I'm going to humble myself again and again and again and take the low road. Maybe today you have a fractured relationship with God. Maybe you've been blaming God for some of the things in your life. I want to give every single one of us the opportunity right now. Maybe right now you don't feel like your relationship is in right standing with God today. This would be a great place for us to start. What if we make things right with God right now? What if we just start our repentance towards God? If you're here today and you know that you're not right with Jesus today, and your relationship with him is fragmented, it's fractured, but today you'd like to start a new relationship with him, a healthy relationship, would you just raise your hand right now? I'm going to pray with you. Thank you. Oh yeah, just keep those hands raised. Come on, I'm going to lead us in a prayer. Keep those hands. Thank you. There you go. Just be bold, be courageous. God, I want a fresh relationship. Maybe you've never given your life to Jesus. Come on, keep those hands raised. We're going to pray together right now. Pray this prayer with me right now. Dear Jesus, I'm sorry for the things that I've done wrong, for blaming you. But today, I am surrendering my life to you. I'm going to come into right relationship with you. I'm asking you to forgive me. And I'm receiving you today as Lord and Savior of my life. And I want you to say these next words just boldly with me. Say this. Say, I believe that my life will never be the same from this day forward. In Jesus' name, amen. Verb, would you put your hands together and just celebrate with those that have made that their prayer today?